Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Keys to Real Estate. I'm your host, Mary Schuster. Well, my guest today is here to talk about how the right tools and processes can help both lenders and title and settlement agents work together more collaboratively and efficiently, all while keeping expenses under control and providing a customer experience that meets the unique expectations that different consumers have in mind as their definition of an excellent closing experience. Alan Frelix from the Closing Exchange is here. We had a great conversation about how the right tools can make the difference in today's closing environment. Now, Alan's been working on solutions for a while now, and by joining forces with Intercontinental Exchange, you know them as ICE, he's helping bring a suite of solutions to remedy some common problems our industry has long faced. So, as you get ready to ramp up for rate cuts and the higher volumes we've all been waiting for, Alan's advice for reimagining the solutions you offer beyond just throwing more bodies at the wonderful problem of being busy, well, that advice is well timed. So please enjoy my conversation with the resourceful industry advocate and problem solver, Mr. Alan Frelix. The presenting sponsor of the Keys to Real Estate podcast is RamQuest. RamQuest fosters a customer-first culture built around an unwavering commitment to provide solutions that don't just meet, but exceed expectations. RamQuest's newest title and settlement production solution, Horizon, delivers unparalleled efficiency, robust features, and scalability to ensure you have tools to boost productivity and elevate performance like never before. Horizon streamlines your operation with secure 24/7 access, automatic updates, and all the power that only the cloud can offer. Plus, Horizon offers a direct connection to the industry's most extensive network of service providers and partners. Experience Horizon for yourself when you visit ramquest.com. And now, please enjoy the show. Well, Alan, welcome to Keys to Real Estate. I've been wanting to get you here for a little while. Glad you could join us today.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. It's been a long time coming.
It has. Well, so for some of our audience who may not be familiar with you or the Closing Exchange, it's a little bit of a unicorn. So I'm wondering if you could start us off by sharing a little bit of your background and what inspired you to start the Closing Exchange. Like, what problem was out there that you set out to solve?
Oh, great. Yeah. I started in the mortgage industry like most. We kind of found my way into the industry. I was in management consulting, and there was a country called Countrywide Financial that was looking for help in strategic planning. And so I was introduced to Countrywide through that, where I eventually became managing director of strategic planning and strategy for Countrywide. Left there, went off on my own, did some entrepreneurial things. And then Bank of America had me join them to try to figure out what to do with some of the assets they had acquired from Countrywide, their credit, flood, title, and appraisal businesses. Did that for a while and eventually took over the title business, ran the national title platform for Bank of America, working with all the title and settlement companies that worked on the origination side, as well as I was the president of the LandSafe Title Agency, a national title agency subsidiary of Bank of America, which we eventually sold to Stewart. Decided to join Stewart there as managing director of strategy there, and then spent a year there and decided, throughout this whole process, we had been dealing with issues around notaries in the industry and how do you get notaries to be the extension of you as a lender and a settlement company to deliver that positive experience that you have been working so hard to do along the way. And so throughout the course of working with lenders, with underwriters, with agents, realized what the problem was, knew what the solution was, and set out to solve that. And so that was the impetus of starting the Closing Exchange. We did that through the acquisition of two different companies that had been in the business for a collective 30 years together. Both had interesting technology, both had a great service model, and had an eye towards the future. And what it allowed us to do was to take a business that had pretty much been a middleman service only company and flip it on its side to become a technology company that delivers training and service via technology to allow flexibility and dynamic change to the closing experience. And that was the impetus of the Closing Exchange.
I love that you're essentially bilingual. You understand the perspective of both the lender side and the title side, and it sounds like you were kind of uniquely positioned to bring those two together to make the service better. So the closing exchange was acquired this spring in April by ICE. I will let you say more about who ICE is and what was it about them that was a good fit for both the company and the clients that you serve.
Yeah, we're really excited to be a part of Ice Mary. It's a company that from the beginning we saw them as a great partner. And when we built the closing exchange, again, we built a lot of technology. We invested, through the pandemic and even thereafter into building technology that allowed us to provide really flexible signing choices, whether it's mobile notary, online notarization, in-person notarization, or some hybrid thereof, with what we think is the most dynamic population of notaries that we have across the nation. So we've got over 80,000 notaries across the country. We provide training, specialization, so that notaries can be versed in home equity signings, high net worth signings, reverse mortgage, you name it. We have a number of those different specializations. And so we got to a point where we had built this wonderful tool. And obviously, when the market turned and rates went up, volume went down, which allowed us to really kind of hone in on those things. But what we knew we needed coming out of this environment was a partner that allowed us to really scale the business and to allow us to fit into an ecosystem that really provides just dynamic opportunities for everyone in this space. And so ICE was that partner. And fortunately, I think for them, they thought that we were a perfect fit for them as well, because they've been investing in technologies as well. So, whether it's Encompass with the Black Knight acquisition, you've got MSP, got collaboration tools between the lender and the settlement group. We have Simplifile for e-recording. We have just a myriad of different tools to create an ecosystem that allows both lenders and settlement agents to work in this very flexible and dynamic environment that allows them to decide where they're going to play the game. And we can meet them wherever they are and then help them along the journey to ultimately what we think is most important is a digital signing, a digital mortgage experience. And so those combination of things made it the perfect fit. And then culturally, there's a lot of fit as well. Just that burning desire to make things better for everybody. And that was a great cultural fit for us as well.
All right. Well, so it sounds like you just fit right into their kind of seamless end to end elements of the transaction. There was just kind of a gap and it feels like you just sort of fit that perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, we're really happy with it. As with any transition, there's a lot of learning for us on our side. And I think they're learning a lot about what the closing exchange can do. The beauty of it is, as we're learning about each other, we're seeing that clients are very interested in what we have to offer. Most recently, we had a situation where a lender approached us about a hybrid signing experience. And we were able to tell them about what we can do as the closing exchange, but probably more importantly, we were able to talk to them about, what can we do as ICE now together? So everything from the point of ordering closing within your LOS to being able to make a decision about what are the different pathways you want to go. Again, as I mentioned, we really view this as an opportunity to make choice about how signings are going to occur. And so, the ability to talk about how you can do all this in one platform uh, from the beginning of the closing through e-recording and even post-closing, within one platform. So we're able to have that discussion to show them the various tools that we have. It was wonderful just to see the eyes light up and the light bulbs clicking, as we were having that conversation. And it led to them actually coming back with, well, hey, can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do that? So it's been great. I mean, it's been just a wonderful experience for us all.
Oh, that's really cool. That's great to hear. And it sounds pretty exciting. I'm an old title and settlement girl. So if I could zero in on that aspect of it for a little bit, today's world is awfully challenging for the title and settlement providers. And what do you think for title and settlement they should be focusing on today?
It's a great question. I think most of the companies that I know of who really are planning ahead are the ones that are going to win at the end of the day. A lot of the settlement companies that I've talked to that took this opportunity during this downturn to make investments in not just the technology, but more importantly, investments in what they're focused on. So if I go back to my management consulting days, one of the things we always told people is, if you're looking to make change in your organization, first of all, you need to have somebody who's a champion for that. And the companies that I've seen that have really kind of elected, if you will, champions, have been most successful. Then what's your vision? What are the objectives and goals that you have? How are you going to measure your success? The companies that have done those things really, I think, are actually proving that they're progressing well. And then how do you define your solution stack? And what I mean by that is there are so many tools available out there, and historically across this industry, what we've done is we've kind of been insular, and we've said we're going to do it all ourselves as in the title space. And I think what people have learned is that because this market is so volatile, we can't continue to just throw bodies at solutions when the market bounces back. We have to actually be able to use the tools that are available, and there's so many out there. I think we have a lot of them that I think are exceptional, obviously, but there are so many tools that you have. Define what is that workflow, what is that customer experience that you want, and then start to figure out what tools are available to fill those needs that A, are compliant, B, that provide efficiency for you as a settlement company, and probably most importantly, that gives you the flexibility to provide different customer experiences so that you can serve the needs of your lender clients wherever they are in their journey as well.
Yes. Well, and you're mentioning that brings up to mind that lenders are increasingly more concerned about reputational risk. They're increasingly more concerned about a positive customer experience via what the lender considers third-party providers, and kind of wanting to establish more control over that consumer experience. So in your imagination, like, how's that set to sort of play out in title companies as we should get interest rates this week? Well, I should note I'll timestamp it. We're recording on Monday. So in the next couple of days, by the time this releases, we'll know what we have. But yeah, how is that kind of likely to play out as volumes come up, but lenders still want that high quality borrower experience? Okay.
Yeah, I think that you hit it on the head, Mary. The kind of that intersection of market growth due to interest rates coming down and the desire to have more control from a lender standpoint of the customer experience. And I'd probably add a third piece there, which is to be more compliant and to manage risk, right? So
Mm-hmm.
those three legs of the stool, I think, are really what's going to drive things. And so when I think of myself, from the settlement perspective, my ultimate job is to provide for my lender clients what they need, right? And so what I'm hearing a lot from lenders is exactly what you said, is lenders desire to have more control over that customer experience. And I use that control word kind of loosely because that's not really what they're doing. What they're saying is, here's what we desire as the experiences, and it's not a single experience. There are multiple experiences that they'd like to be able to provide. And our job from a settlement perspective is to be able to provide them with the tools to be able to do that for the various constituencies that they have. High net worth is very different from your standard Fannie Freddie type deal, and so what I have to do is I need to be able to provide them with the service model and the technology that gives them the flexibility to do that. And so what does that look like? That looks like not having to jump from one system to the next, because that is going to minimize my ability to provide that seamless experience. That looks like having both technology and people, because at the end of the day, this is still a people business. Though we leverage technology, at the end of the day, there is a person at the other side of that, whether that's the closing agent, whether it's someone in post-closing, whether it's the notary that shows up, that is ultimately going to be able to deliver that experience on the technology that we use, right? So if I'm sitting in that settlement space, I want to have partners that are an extension of me and everything that I desire to deliver to my customers. And I want those partners to be technology partners where I'm integrated. If I'm not integrated, I at least want to be able to deliver the experience back in a way that seems seamless to the client,
Mm-hmm.
and the client being the lender as well as the end consumer as well. And then again, when I think about the notary space, because that is kind of the last 3 feet of this, from an origination standpoint, you need notaries who understand how to do mortgage signings.
Yeah.
You need notaries who understand how to do that specific signing, whether that's a refi, a HELOC, close in second, reverse mortgage. Each of those are different in terms of the experience that you're trying to provide. Great example is in the reverse mortgage space. Those tend to take 2 to 3 hours, and you're working with seniors. And there's a lot of documents for seniors to sign. And so you need notaries who are familiar with the document set, who have the patience to be able to work with someone who may or may not be comfortable sitting through this process. Again, having a partner that's able to provide those to you gives you the ability to say to your lender clients, we can cover you in all of these areas and we can be the extension of you to deliver the experiences that you want to provide to your customers.
Well, you're right, and those different types of presentations, it's not a easy learning curve, and there is a real difference to your point about someone who shows up and says sign here, sign here, sign here, whether that's virtual or in person, or can give the kind of the proper care and feeding, some of that education that goes along with it, some of the I'll be here through all of your questions getting answered, that sort of walk hand in hand with the borrower on that last 3 feet and be that last educational component, as opposed to one that just shows up and says, I don't know, I'm your notary, sign here, 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 and here.
Yeah, going back to what got me started with the closing exchange, the first one was I'm ashamed to say the second email I got from the CEO of the company saying, what's going on with this notary? It blew up not just this closing, but it blew up our whole banking relationship.
Yeah.
And so that was when it really started to, just highlight to me how important that is. And, I think you and I were at one point were involved in the signing professionals work group together and building that out. And for most, it's the largest transaction they're going to have in their lifetime. And for a lot of people, they don't come up in a family that teaches them about finances and what the process looks like.
Right.
And even for many of us who've been in this industry for, too long to remember, when you go through the process again, and it's been a while, you still have to think about this, right? And so this is a big thing. It's a really big experience for people. And so it's important to have people who really understand what are the documents that you're signing. And that's in person, ink sign, or online. It's still the same
Right.
process. It's important to have someone who's patient enough to answer questions. Obviously, they're not going to talk about rate or term, but what is a 1003? Just being able to explain those things. It's important for someone to know who to contact when there is a question, right? Do they contact the settlement agent? Do they contact their loan officer? It's important to have that. And it's also important, again, going back to the customer experience, to have someone who's going to really make this a very positive experience too. I mean, you don't want someone online or in person who shows up and they bring the whole process down. You want them to enlighten this whole experience.
Yes.
And so at the end of the day, it's still a closing experience. It's still a ceremony of a closing, whether that's online or in person. And you need people who understand each of those processes to make that happen. And again, the better trained they are in any specific type of product, the better they're able to do any of those things that I just mentioned.
Support for today's episode is provided by October Research. October Research provides national coverage of case law, news, regulatory updates, and competitive business strategies critical for sustaining an innovative and compliant real estate business operation. Our portfolio publications offer independent and unbiased information that helps you stay educated and informed on what matters most to your business. So visit octoberresearch.com to learn more about our portfolio of real estate publications, sign up for free email news, educational webinars, and premier industry events for thought leaders. Knowledge, the competitive advantage. Well, I'm really curious right now. We have title agents who are kind of sitting out at bare bones staffing levels right now to match the lack of volume they've been experiencing. And as we mentioned earlier, we expect that to start changing. And so I think we're going to probably need to see some flex capacity for a while till we figure out what the rates are doing and for how long they might be doing them. And it's kind of an important time probably for companies to re-educate their people and retool effectively for the next wave of origination. So what advice would you have for people?
I think that you've hit on probably one of the most important things. I'm asked often about how do we get people to adopt this digital closing? And the reality is that we're all on a journey together. Whether you're a lender or settlement agent, we're on this journey together. Even the consumer, they're part of this journey as well.
Sure.
And so I think the biggest thing we as an industry can do, but particularly us if you're in the settlement space that you can do, it's about education. This is not a complicated process to go down the path of digital. We've had a lot of this technology for a long time, Mary. I remember, sitting in a conference room with you, talking about this, what was that, 15 years ago,
We were
maybe?
much younger.
Yeah. And so the technology exists,
Yeah.
and it's gotten better, frankly. So what we have to do is we need to educate the consumer, from the beginning, from the application process about what are your options, what are the benefits of those options. We need to educate lenders about what are the pros and cons of each option, and not just that, but how to help them to actually communicate with the borrowers about this
Mm-hmm.
process.
Yeah.
And then within the settlement space, as we all know, I mean, again, our history is when we grow, we add bodies, and we have to train them on how to do all the specifics of the roles that they play, right? Whether that's on the title side, the curative side, the closing, the post closing, they typically play one of those roles, and we focus on teaching them those roles.
Mm-hmm.
But now we need to be thinking about how do we teach them about the entire process, how to communicate that process internally as well as externally. And then, again, I think from the consumer side, it's how can they become more educated themselves, and then what are the tools we can provide them. One of the things that I love about ICE is that within our Ron platform e-sign events, we actually have an eligibility engine, and that eligibility engine actually allows us to look at each order and determine whether or not it's Ron able, IPIN able, down to the county level. And that's
Okay.
pretty unique. It's not just
Yeah.
at the state level. It's based upon our simple file relationships with counties. We
Sure.
have a lot of information that allows us to really drill down and know specifically, is this order eligible? So again, being able to, if I'm a settlement agent, I want that, right? Because now I'm
Sure.
able to say to my lender partners, look, this order, I know you want to do a Ron, but it's not likely to get recorded at the county level. And then again, talking to them about what are the things that you can do to make sure that that borrower is ready. So what are the technology requirements? What is a knowledge-based authentication question? What is that process like? What about ID verification? What are the things that you
Yeah.
need to know about that? And to tell people that if we all go down this process, an e-note is another example. What are the benefits of an e-note? If we all go down this path together, wherever you are in your journey, right? So if you're just starting off and you've been hearing about all these things and you just want to get started, well, there are ways we can help you with that too, right? It's we offer a full service model that can actually get an order started for you in a Round platform. We can do the document tagging for you in a Round platform, provide the notary for you. That's, by the way, not just a notary, but
Right.
trained to be a notary who does mortgages, trained to be a notary who does Rons, and on that specific platform. And so
Yeah.
all of those things we can do for someone who's just getting started. If you're at the other end of the spectrum and you've already been doing a lot of these, most of them have been doing hybrids, right? So it's
Yep.
some form of ink sign, as well as electronic signature. But are you really prepared to do an e-note?
Right.
And we have the ability to provide you with the tool to do e-notes, and we have our own e-vault. And if you're integrated with Encompass, then we can actually send information back through Encompass directly into your lender's e-folder. So there are just so many different ways that I
Yeah.
think that we can enable this process, again, wherever you are in your journey towards digital mortgage. And so again, going back to what you asked, I think the biggest thing is about education.
Okay.
Get educated, get
Yeah.
informed about what the tools are that are out there, get educated about what are the things that help to drive adoption in this industry. And I can tell you myself and my teammates here at ICE, we'd love to have conversations with people about that because we're passionate about it. We believe in it.
That is so cool. Well, to your point about, yeah, some of us have been working on this a while, and we've been hearing for a good long while, and the pandemic helped, but then people kind of backed off, like, this is the future. This is how it's going to go. Adoption's been kind of slow. In fact, I was just on the Title Talk Facebook group over the weekend, and there was a conversation going on in there about, hey, this was from obviously the title perspective. We're all tooled up. We have all this capability, whether it's hybrid or full run or whatever. Why don't we get more demand? And there were two main things referenced in this. There was close to a couple hundred comments, I think, and it was one, lenders are just too gun shy about it, and two, the I think erroneous thought that the digital closings are more susceptible to fraud. I think they're actually less susceptible to fraud, especially with the knowledge-based authentication questions that you mentioned. I would like to see knowledge-based authentications happening in-person closings too, since we're having vacant land theft and all that going on. That's a separate aside. First of all, let me say I'm happy that you're kind of trying to influence upstream those decisions and those conversations, because I think the consumers have a very high expectation going in before they interact with this process at all, that it's going to be somewhat digitized, that it's going to be a little more modern. And then in too many scenarios, because nobody has the conversation with them, they get just by default put in this paper antiquated process, and they kind of go, well, I guess this is the way they do things. I don't like it, but I'm not going to rock the boat. And then, everybody else is going, boy, this would have been nice to do this in a more modern way, but I guess the borrower just wants this way. And so without having those conversations, we never connect the dots of our capabilities and the true demand that's out there. And so we just have everybody kind of going, well, I guess there's not much demand. That was a long way of saying we need to be having those conversations as soon as we're engaging with borrowers.
Well, you said it, Miriam. Applications are taken online. In a lot of cases, you never even see the loan officer that you're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
It's all done online or via the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And you go through that entire process, and at the end of it, it's been a great experience. And you say, oh, by the way, you're going to do everything in ink. It's a weird thing that just continues. Now, having said that, I am actually a big believer that a digital process is an arrow in the quiver. So there will always be a place for ink sign. There will always be a place for in-person closing ceremonies and experiences. But there are just so many benefits of a digital process for all parties involved. Mm-hmm. It's not a perfect process by any means yet. We're still working to improve it and make it better. But again, if you started that point of sale process, being able to take those things online, from a settlement agent perspective, think about the improvement of quality, because these things are put in place where you can't skip steps. Right. So your post close is going to be more efficient. You're going to spend less money, less time, and frankly, you're going to have less issues with your lender client because you've reduced your post close errors. The speed to actually getting documents returned to you, the fact that you can actually review documents, even in an ink sign scenario, sometimes you can actually scan back documents. And we have a tool, by the way, where if we're producing the documents, you can scan back the documents and we can actually review those documents and provide some input on whether or not you need to follow up from a post-close perspective, right? So, that ability, and then having the vault, if you go all the way through eNote, and just being able to deliver your loans in a much faster way that's already kind of predetermined of whether or not it's going to be accepted. There's so many benefits to this, right? So I think that being able to have those conversations up front is critical. Being able to educate people up front is critical. Just as in the settlement space where we've historically thrown bodies at growth, lenders do the same thing, right? And so again, how do you think about creating an ecosystem that makes it easy for people to learn, easy for people to get educated, and easy for everybody along the workflow to actually deliver a great process that's differentiated in terms of the experience, because each one of your lenders is going to have a different experience, a different workflow. But if you can use the same set of tools to do that, it makes your job so much easier.
Well, and it's the perfect time to be looking into that. I mean, we're expecting, maybe not with the cuts this week, but cuts that follow. I mean, we should have HELOCs going crazy. We should have cash out refinances going crazy. We should have purchase. We know there's pent up demand for purchases. And granted, we have to get our supply straightened out a little bit, but we know there's demand that is sitting there just waiting for the rates to drop. So I think it could feel like the turning on of a very large faucet, and you're to your point, you're going to have to, everybody's going to have some processes and some tools in place that will help them go from low volume to increased volume very, very quickly. And you're right, you're not going to train new hires up quick enough to be able to react timely enough to embrace and make the most out of this market.
It's a game we've all played. If we've been in this
We
business
have.
long enough, we've been through these cycles. We understand, how it works. My hope is, and I think from ICE's perspective as well, in terms of the investments that ICE has been making, is that we as an industry do this differently this time around. Again, when
Well
you think
said.
about all the tools that are in place, we've had this unfortunate opportunity of being able to kind of introspectively look at how we can re-engineer our organizations. And again, how do we build that solution stack that I talked about earlier?
Mm-hmm.
There's no better time than now for us to make something different as we go forward. I mean, we've all been preparing for this at this
Yeah.
point. And so, again, from a technology perspective, there are lots of tools available for specific processes that you manage, but also collaboration between lender and settlement, and ultimately to provide a full spectrum of signing choices to the borrowers. We have everything that we need at this point. Now it's really up to us as an industry to really dive in, to engage with each other in conversations about what is our vision. Um, how do we see ourselves today, and what can we do today, and where do we want to go? And have these kind of solution-driven discussions,
Yeah.
solution-driven discussions, if I can say that the right way, because that really enables us to deliver something better, faster, cheaper, more flexible, more scalable, and more dynamic than we ever have before. And again, this is part of the reason why I'm so excited about the closing exchange being part of ICE now, is because it's the vision that I've seen for years. I think that being part of ICE, we now have virtually all the tools that it takes to do these things, and to help settlement out, to help lenders out, and help that collaboration between the two of them out. Now's the time. We can really do something special with this industry right now.
Great. Well, I'm optimistic. Thanks for bringing folks some tools to help make some of these ideas a lot of us have had for a while, or the owners know they've got to find more capacity with less expense. And so the degree to which you guys have been thinking about this and at the drawing board, and trying to bring a solution set that's workable into the market, I'm optimistic and have gratitude for your doing that. So as we wrap up today, I guess I'll just ask you, is there anything I should have asked you about that I didn't?
It's my favorite question. I love that
Ah,
question. The only thing I think we really haven't talked about is, I'm going to say this in a weird way. It's
okay.
from a settlement perspective, we serve lenders at the end of the day and the borrowers.
Mhm.
But how does the settlement community become more empowered to really kind of drive change, right? I mean, at the end of the
Yeah.
day, it's the lender's relationship with that borrower, with that
Yeah.
customer, that consumer. But how does the settlement industry become more empowered to help lenders understand what the tools are that are available to them, how settlement can actually become an extension of those lenders
Mhm.
by using those tools in really creative, obviously compliant ways. And you kind of touched upon fraud, and that's huge, right? I mean, at the end of
It
the
is.
day, we have to make sure that this industry is not impacted by fraud to the extent that it breaks down. And settlement is a key in that whole process. And
Yes.
so I think if I were to, say to settlement, one of the ways that you can help lenders to better understand what you can do for them is to show them how you can utilize the various tools that are available to really impact fraud prevention, fraud deterrence.
Yes.
What are the things that you can do to help lenders better enable their processes upfront and throughout the process? And that, along with being able to deliver these different customer experiences, is going to empower you to have more engaging conversations with lenders. Again, going back, as you said, I'm bilingual, right? Because I've sat on the side of the lender,
Yeah.
and I understand what lenders are looking for. They don't just want settlement agents to execute title, to
Right.
deliver a policy, to manage
Right.
a closing. They actually really want you to be a partner.
Yeah.
And so look at the tools that are available to you, and certainly, we at ICE have a lot of different tools we'd love to talk to people about. But what are the tools that are available to you that will allow you to have a more engaging conversation about what the future can be for a lender? And so I think that's the only thing that we really didn't dive into. But I, again, having sat on both sides, I know what lenders are looking for, and I know from a title perspective what we're looking for. That's where the match really happens, is partnership.
I agree. And, every conference I go to, anytime there's a session that roughly has to do with what do lenders want and how do they want it, title and settlement agents flock to it. And in every one of those sessions, the lender will say, please come to me with what your solutions are so that I know how enabled you are, so that I can make some business decisions based off of that. And I have not heard one lender that has ever said, oh, no, 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 please don't proactively have a conversation with me and
Yep.
tell me all the ways you can fulfill my orders. I mean, lenders welcome those conversations. So I'm thrilled to hear you encourage those conversations to be had.
Great, great. Yeah. It's about solutions. Everything we do is about solutions. We make this whole industry better when we come up with solutions together.
Well said, sir. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks again, Alan, for your insights. I love how you focus on the key elements of education, engagement, and training to help empower not only home buyers and sellers, but also help the stakeholders in our industry discover new ways to delight those consumers, while we're also reducing our risk and helping protect our profitability. So thanks for encouraging those conversations. Now, audience, should you like to continue the conversation, ways to reach out are linked in today's show notes. And if we're about to become as busy as we think we are, now is a great time to make sure you are tooled up to handle the increased business as efficiently as possible without lowering our standards of quality and care. Until next time, keep asking the important questions and offering a variety of solutions. And I'll meet you back here next week to share more keys to real estate. Until then, I'm Mary Schuster for October Research, where knowledge is the competitive advantage.